Hi, I'm Melissa Whiting, and I'm here today to talk to you about worm composting with red wiggler worms, also known as vermicomposting. Today we're going to talk about the two main reasons why we compost. The first would be to reduce how much food waste we put into our landfills, and the second reason being to create this rich nutrients fertilizer that we can use to use on our plants at home, indoors, outdoor. We can use it on our crops, we can use it on our shrubs, our lawns, all of that. So it's really good stuff. So a couple quick facts for you guys. I wanted to let you in on a couple statistics. In America, out of all of the waste that we put into the landfill, 17% of it comes from food waste. And then in America, 29 million tons of food is wasted each year. And then finally, if we could set up simple systems such as composting here, we could reduce how much harmful greenhouse gases are put into our atmosphere by 42%. That's huge. So, moving on, there are a couple of reasons or things that the composting or fertilizer can do for us and for our plants. One of them being suppressing diseases that can reduce our crops. It also prevents pests from attacking our plants, which would also reduce how many pesticides we have to use to get rid of them. It also helps retain water in our soil, which is very helpful during drought seasons. It can also rejuvenate soils, which can be helpful when we're trying to either recreate lands or habitats that have been destroyed in the past, or just trying to use land that in the past was not able to be used. Composting has really cool, it's really cool because when you put it into the soil, it actually can attract pollutants. So when you have rainwater that has pollutants in it that seeps into the soil, the compost actually attracts it, and then it's not absorbed by the plants. And it can also bind heavy metals that are found in our soil, which prevents them from flowing into our freshwater resources. So some really cool things that composting can do for us and our environment. Here at Bell, we've got 4 worm bins. We've got 2 that are set up in classrooms and incorporated into the curriculum, where the other 2 are set up in the lunchroom. They are collecting the food from the salad bar and other things that the cooks don't use while preparing the food. So we're going to take a look at these in just a minute. When we're talking about the worm bins, there's 3 important things to think about. First is the diet, second environment, and then third is just maintenance. If you look right over here, I've got my handy dandy worm menu. You can find this on many different websites, but it's really includes just a lot of things like fruits, vegetables, fun things like coffee grounds, which people don't think about how much coffee grounds we throw in the landfills every day if you drink coffee every day, but they love it, so very good. I want to stress the things that the worms do not eat, because if you put them in there, the worms, they won't eat them. It'll cause other pests to enter your bins. It'll cause rotting, all sorts of stuff that you just don't want to happen. So meat, dairy, don't want to put in there. Anything cooked with butter and oil, not a good idea. Spices, citrus, no good for the worms. They've got sensitive bellies. Okay, so then talking about our environment, the first thing I want to talk about is the bedding. When I say bedding, it's what the worms actually live in. And we're trying to recreate what the worms live in normally, which is the ground. So what we use is we use stuff like cup holders from McDonald's, we've got egg cartons, our Dunkin' Donuts bags, all this stuff, right down to our Starbucks sleeves for our coffees. What we do with these then is we'll take, I've already got some all ripped up, you shred it up, you take it, you dip it in water, you wring it out real good, and you put it right on into your bin. And you don't want it to be too wet because obviously the worms will drown in it. You don't want it to be too dry because then they will dry out. So it's really important for you yourself to find a good balance of where your worms' moisture levels are. This bin that I have here is actually my home worm bin. If it's right underneath my sink, when I'm cooking, I just take my leftover scraps, I throw them in here, put the lid on, out of sight, out of mind, and I let my worms do their own thing, and I don't have to worry about stinking up my garbage with all that food stuff, food waste that doesn't really even need to be in the landfills. Moving over to these worm bins, we have, if you can see, there's different levels to our bins, and the different levels, they've got grates to them. So the worms can actually move up and down through the different levels. We're going to look over here. We've got our first bin here, which you can see is full of bedding. I'm going to show you real quick. When we feed our worms, we want to make sure that there's enough bedding, first of all. Second of all, that it's nice and moist, like we just showed you over there. And then third of all, when we feed them, we want to pick it up. I've got some carrots in there. I've got some blueberries here. I'm just going to throw some blueberries in here. And then I want to make sure that I cover it back up. That's really important to your worm bin. Even if you just take one piece and lay it on top, it'll prevent fruit flies and, like I said, other pests from being attracted to the smell, and they'll stay out of your worm bin. So this is our first bin. That one's just been put together and it's ready. It should take about 3 to 6 months, depending on how many worms you have in there, for it to go through the whole cycle before it's ready to be harvested. This bin here is almost ready to be harvested. You can see that there's just a little bit of stuff left in here, or bedding left, and most of it is this compost. So we have stopped feeding this bin, and I will take it out. I filled this bottom layer with bedding, and I will feed this bottom layer, and the worms will travel down there, and then I will be able to harvest all this compost. The final bin that I have is ready to be harvested. As you can see, there is no more food left in there, just a couple of leftover worms, which when I actually do harvest it, I will pull them out. You don't want to put your worms in with your plants, because they'll eat the roots and stuff, and you really don't want that to happen. So what you can do with this compost, once it's separated, I'll pull it in a bucket and collect it, and then I will take it home with me and put it in with my potting soil. And I will mix it up, and then I can repot my plants. Another thing that we can do, if you look right over here, is something I call worm tea. What I have going on here is I took this fresh compost, I put it into nylon stockings, and then I just hung it over the side. And if you're wondering what the bubbles are, I've got fish tank aerators with a rock down there. So, because when you are working with compost, there's actually little microbes that live in there, and in order for them to disperse into the water, you have to aerate the water because they need the oxygen to live. This form of compost needs to be used right away. It will only last 1 to 3 days. If you refrigerate it, they say that it'll last another 3 days-ish. So you want to use it right away, but you can use this as a spray or just as a liquid fertilizer for your plants. Like I said, I use it in my house plants at home. We use the other stuff, all the teachers' plants within the classrooms. During the spring, we take it out to our gardens outside. We either just sprinkle the fresh soil, compost, and then when it rains, it seeps into the soil, or otherwise we'll take the liquid fertilizer and spread it around the gardens. So that is my presentation on worm composting. I hope you guys learned a lot, and I hope that you guys really have an interest in this, because it's a really easy system that could really benefit us in the long run. So thank you.